think that overly empathetic kind of perspective, we can chase it because it brings so many rewards, and it brings this sense of like, oh, everybody in the world can be peaceful, and like we really can save people, and redemption, and like I have faith in the world, and that's so beautiful. But I think it's useful to consider at some points when that there are diminishing returns, and we are actually causing ourselves more pain and stress, just plain old stress on our nervous system. Just being honest with ourselves, with our feelings, our sensitivities, what we need in order to feel respected, and not trying to hyper-analyze and do all this work on our part in order to convince ourselves why we should feel respected, or why this and why that, just taking our emotions more at face value and trusting that. I think it's just really important to realize when the stress of trying to get this sense of reward and redemption and empathy and connection to our spirits, the goodness of our spirits, and the goodness of humanity, and the beauty, the transformation in humanity, and the redemption, and all that beautiful stuff. It's important to realize when all the efforts we put forth is not balanced compared to what we're getting back from it. Like when that reward of beauty becomes more a theory and not something we actually feel. Hey, I am in a Costco parking lot. I just wanted to talk about something that it was inspired by something I read in a book. So I read in, I can't remember the title of the book right now. I think the author is named Lisa Maraschino or something like that. But Marciano, I'm not sure. But in the book, she has this quote from a psychologist or a psychotherapist or something. And she said, this guy's quote is that, paraphrasing, that 90 to 95% of patients that he sees would be recovered and functional and feel so much better in their lives if they could just be more selfish. And I think that's really important to remember when we are, any kind of problems we see in the world. I think it can boil down to what narratives are we using. We have to be aware what narratives we're using with our own selves, the way we talk to our own selves, the way we provide for us feeling comfort, and the way that we can support ourselves to continue feeling supported, and to know when we are kind of past that point of tolerance for our nervous system. We are past that point of tolerance for assuming a specific role, within a specific situation. So I really found it useful to remember, we have to put ourselves first, and remember, and relearn, or maybe learn for the first time, maybe a way of relating to ourselves in a way that has faith that when we invest in ourselves and we prioritize us feeling safe and good and challenged, yes, but not overwhelmed. When we prioritize this, we can have faith that good things will come of it, that we are worth investing in because we care about other people, and we care about making the world a better place, and just being able to have that belief that just as a human being, we are worth feeling good in our everyday life and not suffering every day. And it's good to learn this kind of opposite counterbalance perspective when we have lived so much of our life, you know, kind of maybe sometimes unconsciously, but choosing to, I mean, as sometimes it's not a choice. It only becomes a choice once you learn certain information, just realizing the impact we have on our mood based on the thoughts that we affirm to ourselves, based on the perspectives and narratives we choose to take on the world and the way that we choose to see ourselves in relation to the world. So I guess I'm just feeling like it's so important to have that undercurrent of just care for ourselves, that we feel safe and good and trusting that we are worth that, and that beautiful things can come and we can find our authentic place in life, our authentic mode of getting by in life and interacting, of exchanging value in return for value, when we follow that sense of enjoyment. And really being honest with ourselves, like, we don't have to demonize other people or demonize ourselves in order to acknowledge that something just isn't gelling. And everything is kind of a part of an experiment. Even people who don't realize that they're experimenting with themselves, it's an experiment for them. It's we everybody is constantly in an experiment with ourselves, but if you're not conscious of that experiment, then I think it can lead to a lot of despair and unnecessary disappointment and emotional upheaval, um, when we feel like what we're doing is, um, when we ascribe other narratives to what we're doing instead of ascribing the narrative of experimenting in order to understand what is authentic to us. And yeah, so this quote that I wish I could remember his name, that this woman mentioned in her book, the quote about being more selfish. For me, how I'm interpreting that is feeling into my bodily sensations and acknowledging my emotions, and sometimes being like, just because like another person, it feels right and energizing for them to be very angry in a time of their life in order to defend against evil. I can have that same definition of evil, but I don't need to assume this form of stressing out my nervous system in order to prove that I'm a good person, or that I believe this thing is evil. It's beautiful and necessary for everybody to have their own approach that works for them regarding, defeating evil, so to speak. And, you know, God bless the people who are really energetic and angry, and that kind of mode is what comes most natural to them. But I know myself, and I know for myself, in most instances, that kind of activation of my nervous system is not sustainable in this time of my life. And I maybe it will be when my physical health is better in the future, 5 to 10 years from now, as I continue to age and I have different circumstances which give me different stabilities, different convictions, but for me in this time of my life now, I know that a perspective that, fighting against evil by having more understated ways of interacting with people, and with prioritizing my wellness and my happiness, that is really important to me. When I was younger, I definitely felt like at that time the best way that I could fight against evil, so to speak, was to try to be hyper compassionate and empathetic to people who were the evil was kind of living through them. Um, and I'm still trying to understand those times of my life. And I accept that I don't need to focus on it so hard, because I think I'll naturally understand it and it'll be put into perspective, over the next 5-10 years, as I continue aging and having different experiences and hearing other people's stories more. So I don't feel like I have to like figure out and solve and force an answer to my trauma, so to speak, to dissect it all now, because I know it's not really possible. But I do very much feel like that hyper empathetic perspective, um, that has a role to play. But if you are too empathetic and you try to maintain your own mood, you try to maintain your own joy, your own energy levels, through the joy you get from being empathetic and understanding and loving to people, that kind of, it gets into this situation where you can, it's like, well, I was going to relate it to kind of an addictive thing, where with, it's like diminishing returns, kind of like with drugs. You will invest a lot into procuring this drug because you're like, yes, this is so valuable. But as you continue all your activities in order to get that drug and experience it, you start getting more side effects in your life and more small details that you can't be aware of, less control over your emotions and thoughts, and less like uh less self-awareness, less capacity to feel your emotions and to know what you're experiencing and who you are and how to be honest to yourself. Less awareness of how you can automatically interpret and project narratives onto situations around you that aren't helpful, like being paranoid or extremely anxious, or um, seeing the worst in the world. These kinds of things can be very pervasive, and the only way to, well, so we're we can be investing ourselves into drugs, getting all this negative side effects, and still hoping and focusing on that beauty that comes from the drug, that little glimpse of happiness and reward. But the more we try to pursue that, the more all the negative side effects are that just compound in our lives. And I think the same is true with overly empathetic perspectives in our lives. When we don't use that in the right situations or temper it with other self-protective ways of understanding ourselves and our needs and our emotions, I know I've definitely had a lot of unidentified needs in the past, or still now. It's always a work in progress. We all have unidentified needs, just because that's, being a human, learning and changing and adapting to figure out what we need now to keep things in homeostasis. But I think that overly empathetic kind of perspective, we can chase it because it brings so many rewards, and it brings this sense of like, oh, everybody in the world can be peaceful, and like we really can save people, and redemption, and like I have faith in the world, and that's so beautiful. But I think it's useful to consider at some points when that there are diminishing returns and we are actually causing ourselves more pain and stress, just plain old stress on our nervous system. Just being honest with ourselves, with our feelings, our sensitivities, what we need in order to feel respected, and not trying to hyper analyze and do all this work on our part in order to convince ourselves why we should feel respected or why this and why that, just taking our emotions more face value and trusting that. I think it's just really important to realize when the stress of trying to get this sense of reward and redemption and empathy and connection to our spirits, the goodness of our spirits and the goodness of humanity and the beauty, the transformation in humanity and the redemption and all that beautiful stuff. It's important to realize when all the efforts we put forth is not balanced compared to what we're getting back from it. Like when that reward of beauty becomes more a theory and not something we actually feel. And I think it's important to remember that, or be aware of those signs that what we're feeling is signs of burnout or overload or stress, whatever you want to call it. Signs that, the thing we find beauty and inspiration in is the way that it is currently worked into our life is having diminishing returns in a way that makes our pursuit of this beautiful thing unsustainable. I think about the quote, you can't help somebody who is hurting you. You can only help people in a way that protects you so that you can continue offering your perspective and not be, harmed, so to speak. Think of that, and it's up to us. Only we can feel our feelings and know at what point the harm becomes too much for us. And a part of that is, we have to be open to being selfish, because sometimes what we consider like should be our limit, for survival, or if we put these rules on ourselves that in order to survive, in order to be worthy to be in a space with other people, we have to play a role where we diminish our needs or comfort, then we're going to find that in the world around us. But if we know for ourselves that we value environments with respect, with mutual respect, with fun, where the focus is, on remembering common humanity and common, just human rights, when we can remember this, it goes so far in releasing us from these patterns where we can start to feel like we have to control or micromanage, or we get super stressed trying to be a good person, trying to keep on doing something that was once rewarding for us, trying to feel that sense of redemption or connection to our creative identity, to our, that kind of archetypal passion. For me, like, I really love that narrative of transformation and redemption. I think most people do. And that is, we can go chasing after that sometimes, not realizing we don't have to sacrifice ourselves in order to connect to that feeling. And trying to, if we try to control and change the world around us in ways that exhaust us and cause us to feel pain, then it's not really authentic to us. Maybe it was authentic in the past, but we change, our circumstances change, our needs change, our strengths and limitations change, because a strength and a limitation to some degree is relative, depending on the circumstance that you're in and the opinions and beliefs of the people you're around, and just whatever situation you're in. So yeah, I just have really been thinking about this lately, how being selfish, we can come back to this idea and be like, what are the things that I have always told myself is like my threshold for what becomes like negative selfishness, And what is that place in me where I can open up to realizing that what I used to consider like beyond the point of selfishness, I'm like, no, this is just my basic standard, something that I understand the beauty and value of, and I believe all people should have, and that I need in my life, you know? Um, and I know that there is a little bit in this world, a little bit of this thing like, ugh, sadly, the time of history we live in, we kind of do have to have people consent to sacrifices so that other people can um, have more privileges. And I don't know. It's, you know, it's a really difficult thing. And I just feel like throughout the course of a lifetime, people should be on both sides of being underprivileged and being overprivileged. Well, that doesn't really make sense. I guess I'm just trying to say I think that everyone should have that. I guess I kind of am saying that everybody during a lifetime should do their fair share of. I don't even want to say that because it's so hard because the systems we live in. It's like the systems, the practices within them can be toxic. Um, and really bad on mental health and really toxic for people's quality of life. But at the same time, the benefit of this system can overall help underprivileged people. I'm thinking of like Amazon, for example. Like I've been an Amazon delivery driver for 2 years in the past, over 2 years. And I'm about to start again. And it's just one of those things that's really difficult to weigh the the while we don't have other systems in place, other alternative systems in place for people to receive resources and receive help and feel open and safe to receive resources and transportation and all this. I mean, transportation comes back to your connection with people, though, and your ability to feel safe and other, oh, sorry. I'm like going down a rabbit hole now. I'm like, oh, thank God the internet is around to help bring different mindsets to people that otherwise would be completely inaccessible. Um, but even so, on the internet, there's so many distracting things, but it's still better than nothing. Anyway, um, I got sidetracked, but just wanted to say, consider being more more in service to yourself so that you can be of more service to others. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And take care. Bye.